Welcome to TrineDay's The Journey, conversations with publisher Kris Millegan. I am Bruce Torres. With us are Cheri Seymour, author of The Last Circle, Danny Casolaro's investigation into the Octopus and the PROMIS Software Scandal, and Zachary Treitz and Christian Hansen, whose documentary is The Octopus Murders on Netflix, which they made because decades later, new details emerged about Danny's death. And now, Kris Millegan.
Hey, Bruce, thank you very, very much. And Cheri and Zachary and Christian, thank you so much for your time here that you're spending with us. And well, this podcast is called The Journey because it has been a heck of a journey even just to get to right here. And, I really appreciate the work Cheri's done. And then, you guys stumbled across it. And what has the reaction been, Christian and Zachary? Has it been all positive, or what's happened?
It's been hugely positive. People are still talking about it. I search what pretty kind of compulsively what the conversation is about the show on Twitter, and people are still finding it and talking about it and having their seems like their minds are blown. I do get a little concerned about people's interpretation of Cheri's story about the JFK tape. People seem to think that the driver killed Kennedy, which is not the point that Zach was trying to get across.
Or Cheri was trying to get across, which I feel like we spelled out pretty clearly in it, but people just kind of want to read what they want to read.
Right.
And there's similar little things like that where it's like, no, that's not what I was saying. And I think there's sort of a false ending in the show where I am kind of down in the dumps and I'm dealing with the possibility that Danny could have killed himself, which is still, a real possibility, just because there is a certain lack of knowledge that exists. But then we kind of present all this other evidence that, but even the Casolaro family, when they watched the show, they got to that point, they thought it was over. They were super deflated and that they thought that was the end. And then they almost got up to turn off the TV and then the phone rings and we get the files from Martinsburg.
Right. Well, that's a typical reaction. Because once you start looking into these quote unquote conspiracy theories, okay, and you gather all this evidence and you look at it and you say, okay, well, it could be this, but then you find something else and you say, well, it could be that. And then there comes to a point in time where you start, doubting, the whole thing to a certain extent and looking at it and trying to figure it out. So, I find that to be the natural progression of looking into these things. If you don't have doubts,
you're not paying attention.
That's right. So Cheri, you went to the thing in LA. How was that? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure.
Explain what it was first, too.
It was on March 29th. It was a screening at what was the name of the theater again?
Vidiots.
In
Los Angeles.
And I went there and I saw it and I thought, I went there early to see where it was at. And I went, what are they doing it here for? Until I got inside that theater. Beautiful theater. It's got a bar. It's got big, tall ceilings. It's huge, really good ventilation. And I walked down into that theater for the seating and I said, now I know why they picked this theater. It was a great theater. All the people that had arrived, it was packed. They were really, really supportive, very interested. It was a love fest. They loved Zachary and Christian. And after all of us got up on the stage and talked, they loved us too. And they clapped and they laughed, and everybody had a really good time.
We had, we played the first two episodes and then we had a panel discussion afterward, moderated by a funny young comedian named John Early. And then on the panel was Cheri and John Powers, the cold case detective from Riverside County, and Bobby Moses Nichols, the son of John Philip Nichols. who's a big part of episodes 2 and 3 and a huge part of the story. And Bobby appeared in the show, and John Powers was investigating Bobby's father for a
Right.
long time. And Bobby,
had never met.
They were a little little nervous about being on a panel and sitting next to each other, but they liked each other a lot. And there was an after party. Tom O'Neill, the author of Chaos, was there, and all of these other like interesting filmmakers and investigators. There was a guy that I was positive was in the CIA, and then I looked across the room and I saw John Powers and Bobby just like chopping it up, hanging out and enjoying each other's company, and it was just a really cool night.
It was surreal, actually, is what it was. It was like those three, Cheri, John, and Bobby, before this, exist in their own separate boxes for us, in their own separate worlds in the movie, and to have everybody there together and all of us talking on the stage, it was overwhelming. Actually, it was like, this is crazy.
There was a lot of camaraderie on the stage with all the characters that were there.
Even despite various viewpoints from all these people, we all.
Bobby was so impressive. He's such an easygoing, nice guy. He's got such a great perspective on his father's, involvement with the CIA and whatnot. And he just came across, everybody liked him, everybody was sympathetic.
He had some several moments that basically jokes, like, people really got his vibe, and there were some moments where the whole theater erupted in laughter, at different parts that he said and kind of how he said it. And
they were very
funny.
Very receptive, your audience. They clapped when somebody said something they liked, and they laughed. It was they were very much a part of the whole,
that's a dynamic that I've seen at like JFK conferences and other conferences, where you have these people and they've all written books and they've generally read each other's books and whatnot. But when you get them all together, something happens, and it moves the investigation forward. So have we moved the investigation forward into Danny's death?
Yeah, we've got some little leads that have come in that we still have to kind of like suss out. If true, it could be interesting. We're going to be making a trip to DC to figure out what that is, but stay tuned until we know. It's too soon at this point to tell. That's as far as just like Danny, but then there's the octopus, and we've also been trying to figure out how to move that further and how we can explore that world more and share with people.
Are you considering doing a follow-up, like
that's what we're
program?
working on now.
Yeah, we're seeing if there's enough there. I mean, I don't think we want to do it unless it's like, wow, this will be amazing. If it's not amazing, I think we can't do something we're half-hearted about. But it would be cool. There's a lot of questions, as you all know, that are unanswered on this thing, and a lot of places, even in 3.5 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, so much stuff we didn't get to talk about. I mean, luckily Cheri has a huge book about it, but
you're the first to tackle it and really get some substance out there. You're the first, so
right.
Keep it up.
Zach, you also, by the way, you didn't read the email. We're all wearing blue today.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I just wanted to be different.
Leave it to Christian to figure that one out.
Well, I thought it was interesting that some of the early pushback was that, you guys didn't solve anything. You didn't do anything, and it was just a exercise in futility. But that's to be expected with this type of comments. And
I would say that it was certainly an exercise in futility, but not just an exercise in futility.
well, now, and I've you've been on some podcasts, but I really haven't seen anything in the mainstream news about it or anything. What type of coverage has it gotten?
There was like an article in GQ. An article just came out in a film magazine called The Wrap.
So there was a lot of stuff from the UK, so the Guardian covered it and DailyMail and things like that, which was cool. I do agree that I think like mainstream American press ignored it, but you know, I wouldn't attribute too much to that. It's also like there's a million things on Netflix.
Didn't you
like,
get an hour on C-SPAN?
Yeah.
But we,
And
yeah, that was
Cuomo
amazing.
Cuomo was in love with you guys.
We were
Yeah,
on
so
the
the
Cuomo show, we were on Lou Dobbs show, we were on Chuck Todd's show, we were on
yeah, we went on
on-
Glenn Beck's podcast, which was a for me a Rubicon to cross. So yeah, we got you know, no complaints here. I do think it was a pretty, you know, did decent numbers on Netflix. We were on the top 10 for a couple of weeks. Everybody wants that New York Times, or at least I do want that New York Times write-up, but season 2 we'll just have to wait.
Is there a video of the discussion at the theater in LA? Did somebody videotape that, and will that be available for
Something,
people?
I hope the audio sounds good. We didn't do like a amazing bang up job at it, but we tried to get something. We haven't even reviewed it.
We've been running around since that, and
We've basically been on a constant research trip since that almost.
we were also told like to pitch something within the first 6 months of it coming out. So we're like, what? Okay, we got to figure out what that is and like get something enough together to pitch something. So we've been like really frantically running around trying to figure out what we're gonna do. How's it been for you, Cheri? Has anyone recognized you at the grocery store or anything like that?
No, that was the first thing you asked me when you came to my house. Do your neighbors know that you're famous or whatever? I said, no. What about the book? They don't even know I have a book. And you were shaking your head like you just couldn't believe that. But anyways, hey, I've been working very hard. And Rachel Begley, on a project. And
cool.
If it's successful, we would love for you, both of you, to become involved in filming our witnesses and even the Congress people.
Let's tell about your project, if you may, Cheri.
We gave it a name. We gave it Operation Angry Eagle. We're trying to get the appropriate agency to go into the National Archives and find the missing wiretaps. Now, I was told many years ago, 13 years ago, that those FBI wiretaps, where they were wiretapping Robert Booth Nichols, and they captured him and also one of his associates from MCA Corporation talking to Edwin Meese on the tapes. Okay. And then the FBI investigation was shut down as a result of that conversation, and Edwin Meese sealed the tapes. The men, U.S. Attorney, FBI, who were doing the wiretapping were very upset when Danny Casolaro died. And they went to the Judiciary Committee and they spoke with John Cohen, the Inslaw House Judiciary Committee on Inslaw. He was their the investigator for that. And they went to him secretly and they provided him with copies of those wiretaps that were sealed. John, when he took the 37 boxes of Inslaw investigative documents and put them in the National Archives, he also took the wiretaps and the affidavits and the depositions of those investigators from Los Angeles and included those with the boxes that he stored at the National Archives. When I was getting ready to publish the book, I was speaking to people who legally, Republican politician, went into the National Archives and pulled out all of the boxes and kept them overnight. I was invited to go to that meeting and fly out there, but I had the flu, so I didn't go. The point is, it's 2 weeks later, I was provided with what they found. So then years go by, and now I'm getting ready to publish the book, and I wanted to be able to put those documents, those wiretaps, into my book legally, officially. And I was told that they were never returned. Those particular wiretaps were never returned to the National Archives. They were kept for 4 years and then destroyed. I was outraged at that. Okay, so that was when the book was published 13 years ago. This was all happening. So I contacted the gentleman who had done the wiretaps, who had handled the wiretapping of Robert Booth Nichols and capturing the DOJ on the wiretaps. And I interviewed them, and they're in chapter 22 of the Last Circle book, their responses to me. And they confirmed everything. What they didn't know is that those affidavits, depositions that they provided to John Cohen, and the copies of the wiretaps are no longer in the National Archives. And I think it's time that Congress goes into the National Archives and finds out whether they're there or not. Because if they're not there, those are sealed wiretaps that were stolen from the National Archives. If they can do that, they can steal anything out of there. And I asked them at the time, I asked the people I was speaking with, I said, how can you not return boxes to the National Archive? Doesn't somebody keep track of what goes out and what comes back? So I pursued that, and someone from one of the committees back in 2010 went in there and said, they're missing, they're gone. But this particular person, this clerk, did not want to be exposed. Okay, so now we take it forward 13 years, and the documentary comes out. This created a huge interest in all of this. Without the documentary, this was a dead issue. But with that documentary, it's reopened Pandora's box. And so I've been pursuing that. Rachel Begley is an amazing, valuable resource, a computer genius, actually a technical expert, who has been making the contacts in Congress and has had responses. Then I made contacts from my end, and we've been assigned an investigator, a specific committee in Congress to go ahead and find out if those 2 boxes of wiretaps are actually missing or not. And that's where we stand at this time.
They find them. Do you get to listen?
I already have them.
Yeah, she already has copies of all of this.
It's in chapter 22 of the Last Circle.
Right.
They were brought to me.
The transcript.
But legally, legally, I'm not supposed to have them. The gentleman who brought them to the Judiciary Committee weren't supposed to do that. This was all well over 13 years ago when all of this came about. So nobody cares at this point. But still, what we need to do is, once these certain committees discover that those wiretaps are missing out of the National Archives, they have to reopen a lot of cases. They have to open the Casolaro case. They have to reopen Rachel's father's case, because the Department of Justice at that time was covering up what was on those wiretaps. And I know what was on it because I have John Goen I got, okay? And so the point is that it's going to reopen everything that the DOJ covered up at that time. Really, really covered up.
Wow.
How come I feel like a ragtag group of pilots?
Jimmy Hughes was, he got off. He didn't have to go to court because of he would have exposed in the court. Danny Casolaro, everything that Danny was working on was kept out of all the reports. It was never in the DOJ report or in the Inslaw report. And because the man that he was investigating was from the DOJ, so everything comes back to the Department of Justice, and they've been covering it up. I've looked up every single attorney general since then, since 1991. They have to go in and they have to investigate, because now the committee that those documents belong to has to go in and has to find out what happened to them. And this is by law, they have to find those wiretaps.
Cheri, you're a national treasure.
So what I'm hoping is that when we finally get official confirmation from the judiciary, and they have to go to the whole judiciary once they get this information, and then they have to open a congressional investigation, I would love for Zachary and Christian to interview on film our witnesses who provided those wiretaps to the judiciary, interview the investigator that went into the National Archives, interview the Congress people on the committee who opened this case up, and then pursue the reopening of the Casolaro and the Cabazon cases. And they could be the first. We're going to exclusively give that to Zachary and Christian.
We will be there if you will have us.
Good. Excellent.
And you're back on the board officially?
Oh, big time. And I was just being a little old lady at home until you guys showed up and put that documentary out there.
We activated the sleeper cell of Cheri.
Totally. And everybody else too. You know, a lot of, for instance, Wendy Weaver. I spent 2 hours on the phone with her last night.
Wow.
These people, a lot of these people who had close friends with Danny and so on, are very interested in what you are doing next. Very, very interested in that.
Wow.
And I got their fingers crossed that you're going to be successful with your future projects. Everybody's pulling for you.
We're excited for you.
Yeah.
That'd be exciting. I would love to bring you guys into it when the time comes, if we're successful.
For sure.
That's great. We'll all be partners in it.
Yeah, I still remember that time where, we did a thing in LA with Cheri and Daniel Hopsicker, and Cheri was talking about this and said, well, there's these people out of the Department of Justice and they're waiting for Ed Meese to die, and he's still with us. And another very interesting thing happened at that event there. Right before the event was over, some lady walks in and says that Kurt Cobain isn't dead. He's really alive. Okay. And, there are conspiracies that happen. Okay. And then there are quote unquote conspiracy theories. Okay. And one thing that I find is that the powers that be don't just use conspiracy, but they also use conspiracy theory to befuddle people. Okay. They'll say, oh, well, this one, that one, so that who knows what's true. I mean, Cheri called me up one day and says, these guys showed up and they're taking pictures and all kinds of stuff and looking in my documents, and there's going to be a documentary. And I said, okay, I'll wait and see if it happens. And Lord have mercy if it didn't happen. Okay. And it is moving the needle. And so what was the most amazing thing that came out of the woodwork after you guys did this documentary? I mean, did somebody come out of the woodwork and say, hey, I saw that, or anything?
There's a few amazing things that happen. I really think it's better for us to fully do the reporting first before really going into it.
But happy to talk to any of you privately anytime.
Bruce, you have any questions or comments for our guests?
Yes. Cheri, briefly, what was this controversy of the clip of you discussing the limo driver, and what did you really intend, and how was that misportrayed? And that's just my impression. That's all I know about it because I didn't dig into that. What happened?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, to tell you the truth, because they did a whole article on that on the internet about just that aspect of the documentary, which was kind of disappointing to me. That they focused just on that aspect of the documentary when it's such a good documentary, and that they made this huge article on that.
What was the article's angle?
Robert Booth Nichols in that meeting, and we were there 3 hours at least, and he saved that for the very last. I had no idea why he was showing that to me, but it tied into Michael. This is also complicated, and you know how complicated it is. When you're presenting this to the public, you can't really get into all the details because they'll just get lost. But I'll give you a little detail here. Michael Riconosciuto was convicted based on a videotape that I was told that was in a light fixture over a table. And that was the video they used in his court. Nichols knew that. And he was trying to show me it was innuendo that the tape that convicted Michael had been tampered with. So now he's showing me the Zapruder tape to show me how you can change a tape. He didn't say that. We'd been talking about Michael and the tape, and now all of a sudden he's showing me the Zapruder tape. And then when it was all done, he looks at me after he showed me both videos, and I'm standing up. I'm standing in front of this screen because I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And I turned around and I looked at him and I said, what's the point of this? And he said, nothing is as it appears to be. And he was very intent when he said that. And I got the feeling that he was trying to tell me that the videotape of Michael was tampered with, was not real, because it kind of connected to our conversation. But I didn't get into that in the book or anywhere else because it just gets more and more complex, to the point where pretty soon everybody's just scratching their head. So I left it alone. I left it to the public to figure out why Nichols was showing that to me. And then also it occurred to me when I was writing the book, all these years later, that he was looking for deniability. One of the things that he had said, which again, I didn't put too much of that in the book. Well, maybe I did, I can't remember now. But he said, if you tell anybody about this meeting, you will end up like Danny Casolaro. And he was very clear about that. And also the person who came with me to the meeting told me that. And then he told me that again after we left the meeting down at the car. He said that the same thing. If you tell Michael about this meeting, you will not live.
Right.
Okay, so I'm being threatened through the whole meeting on this. So, with the Zapruder tape, I figure he showed that to be able to give deniability to himself that that meeting ever occurred, that I would look like a conspiracy theorist by bringing up the Zapruder tape. And I did it in my book because I'm going to put in the book everything, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to tell the truth, hell or high water.
Right, you framed it
tell the truth
in the book and in the documentary at arm's length. You're like, I can tell you that I saw it. I'm not going to tell you that I believe that it was real.
And well, there's very explicit in the film saying that tape was shown to do the deniability to make it seem like I'm a conspiracy theorist when I start telling people about that tape, because
absolutely,
you tell people that you saw a tape of the driver shooting JFK and they're like, okay, crazy lady, like goodbye. It's just
especially if I believed it.
Yeah. And so you say that explicitly in the film, and yet people still want to take a different meaning from it. It's just kind of like the stickiness of ideas that people.
Nichols was pretty clear also, something I didn't put, like I said, you can get off into so many angles that you just lose the reader. But his partner in Fidco was the first one to ever have the Zapruder tape.
Murchison.
Yeah. Yep. That particular tape was first really put out by Lazar out of Nevada. And they basically took a VHS.
Or Lear, you mean Lear, not
yeah,
Lazar.
Lear, and made several generational copies of a VHS tape to make it show that. And then Bill Cooper made it very popular as far as something. But yeah, it's a complete untruth.
Mm-hmm. There was another aspect. Kelly O'Meara, when she was doing her investigation of the RCMP in probe of PROMIS in California, we went to see Peter Zakowski, who was the person who Robert Booth Nichols stored his documents with. And Peter Zakowski and Kelly and I went and interviewed him, and he showed her that same tape. Kelly wanted to see it, and he showed it to her also.
I love that scene in your book where he then wants to give a tarot card reading, and there's a dead frog on the tarot.
There we go again with this deniability. And I put that in the book too. I'm just going to tell the truth. Take it or leave it.
Cheri, are you referring to a viewing of a Zapruder film that is different than the classic Zapruder film that the public knows?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely different.
That more or less clearly seems to show the driver shooting Kennedy?
Yep, it's as clear as can be.
All right, well then, thank you for that.
Christian and Zach, you guys got to get on a plane here pretty soon. And any last words or last thoughts or something you want to talk to Cheri about or anything you want to say?
Don't say last words and plane. This is a Boeing that we're getting on, so please.
Well, we're really grateful for you guys. Kris, it's been cool for this film alone to just give us the opportunity to talk to you, because we didn't know you before we released that. And we've read many of the books that you guys have put out. And of course, Cheri.
Any exciting TrineDay titles coming down the pipe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got, we just are releasing one called Psychological DNA by a forensic psychologist and a doctor of criminology about the RFK case. Okay, he was a student of Dr. Diamond, who was the lead psychiatrist in there.
Wow.
It is a very deep dive going into Sirhan's mind. Very, very good. Then we have one called Manchurian Journalist, written by a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist that takes on Lawrence Wright, who did Looming Tower and a couple other books, and shows his direct relationship to the intelligence services and how he is being used to befuddle us. Okay. And then we've got one I'm very excited about too, called The Seven Commandments of the Sacred Buffalo Calf Woman by Lakota medicine man. That just is, it's just a beautiful book. Then we also have Sherlock Being Catfished, okay, a memoir of Joan Mellon. She was a professor at Temple for many years, and she retired, and so she had some time on her hands, and she looked into her Facebook account, and she saw all these things, and she almost got catfished, sending money off to somebody, but she had some young research associates who told her, this is catfish. She'd never even heard of catfishing. And then she also goes into a bunch of her investigations when she was looking into Garrison and whatnot. And it's a cute, little interesting book. And we've got some more too, but I can't remember them all. Lord have mercy.
Great stuff.
Amazing.
Christian, are you going to publish a book?
Hopefully. I mean, I'm focusing on trying to do another doc with Zach, but there's definitely plenty of stuff to do a book.
That's the fail-safe.
That's the fail-safe.
And hopefully, we can just do it someday.
I hope you guys get another documentary out there. I mean, there's a lot of subjects out there, and I mean, if you just follow what you've already done, it's a pretty wide field there. There's a lot of corruption in your scope there that.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting medium to tell stories in. Like the videos we found of Robert Booth Nichols, like just amazing. You could describe it in a book, but it's so cool to just like put him on the screen like that.
There's a reason that video is out there. I mean, what is it that we're doing? Okay, I mean, we're trying to, create a better future, for our children. We've got to, the corruption in this country is just rampant, and a lot of it has to do with the drugs that the intelligence services and others have brought in, because it gives them just huge amounts of money that allows them to corrupt. The government that, our founders gave us, we're still working towards a perfect union, but the idea of a government of and by and for the people is an amazing thing, and we need to keep it, and we need to get rid of the corruption. The only way we're going to do it is, well, first we got to find out about it, and then we got to understand it, and then we got to tell people about it, and then maybe they can understand it. And, so it's an ongoing journey, and I really appreciate everything that everybody does. Lord have mercy. Onwards.
Amazing.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, guys.